Put on your helmets and buckle your chin straps for the wildest podcast held in the Steel City. Dubs and Chickenhawk will give you a taste of the past in fried jumbo.
Welcome to our Fried Jumbo podcast today. We have a very special guest, someone that I've been friends with for 25 years now. Met him through working at State Farm. I love Tony because he was always front and center when we would be teaching something. You know, he'd been agent 40 years or so, but when we'd be teaching something new, you could always count on Tony being front row with his notepad and paper.
Getting it done, huh?
Getting it done. Super successful with State Farm, but always wanting to learn more. I learned a lot from Tony, and I just wanted to bring him on this podcast because he had a lot of interesting things, conversations, late night stuff. We talked through life growing up and things like that when we were on trips together with State Farm. So since we're doing this podcast now, I thought it'd be great to have on Todd.
Yeah, let's give it a go, man. Let's hear his story, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let's listen to it.
So, Tone, I know you well. Todd doesn't know you well. Can you spend a minute telling Todd a little bit more about yourself?
Who are you, Tone?
Yeah.
Right now, who are you?
Let's see, what personality should I channel?
There are quite a few, actually.
Well, I think I'm a kind of a dyed-in-the-wool burger. Born and raised in Pittsburgh, lived in Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, 95% of my life. And so I hope I'm representing. Grew up in first a little burg called Hayes, a subset of Pittsburgh.
Hayes, H-A-Z-E.
H-A-Y-S.
Oh, H-A. I knew there was
I think it's H-A-Y-S.
It's H-A-Y-S.
Oh
It's where the what do you call that? The bald eagle lives up in Hayes. You know.
Oh, there's
Yes,
a bald eagle
exactly.
lives in Hayes.
That would have been about a half mile.
Wow, there's
from,
a bald eagle
from where
in the
we actually
burg.
lived, right? Exactly. And then we moved to the inner city, Pittsburgh, Bloomfield, and then later on in my life, when I started college, I lived in Shadyside, and then from Shadyside, after I started working about 7-8 years, I became involved with State Farm. I was with a company called State Mutual first, and from there moved to Wexford, lived there up until the last 3 years.
Wexford, PA,
right? Wexford,
north
Pennsylvania.
North of the Pittsburgh area.
Yes, north of Pittsburgh. Now I'm in Cannonsburg.
Nice. So let me ask you one question. So you have to be related to Beth Sciullo.
Boy, the name is right for me.
From Bloomfield. The Sciullos from Bloomfield.
Had to be, but Sciullo is actually a little village in Italy.
Right.
It's right across from Rome.
Right.
And it could be we were fill in the blank, but we said we were Sciullos. I don't know. I don't know Beth.
But you've probably heard of Beth. Have you heard of Beth? She's about your age.
She sounds familiar.
She was my assistant for a long time, and then you have
okay.
the police officer that passed.
Same deal. I did not know him.
Wow, and you lived in like a 20-block square area of Bloomfield, PA.
Absolutely, but I'm far older, so maybe
no,
that's
I don't think
what it
so.
was. Oh yeah,
you got to be related to him because you all have that. You know, you're all 6'10", 6'11", something like that.
Truly, yeah. I gave up my semi-pro basketball career to play for State Farm.
But it's Sciullo, right?
Correct.
Yeah, hers is Scuil. Yeah.
And let me tell you how that could happen.
And that Paul
Yeah.
That
Sciullo.
dot, bloop, 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 and the
Yeah.
dot floats.
Yeah.
And, I myself said, I made it look like it's UI, but what I tell people is it's I before you because I'm selfish. Okay.
That you learned that in elementary school.
Yeah, it's not true,
How
I hope,
to
but-
remember things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Meditational
Association.
unit.
Yeah, I remember those days. That's for sure.
Yeah, so you and I were talking earlier today. I learned a lot. I met him for lunch before we started this, and we were talking a little bit about him growing up, and I learned some things that I had no idea of, but I thought maybe we'd start there because I think by starting there, we're going to be able to get somewhere where we can kind of feel why you coveted education so much, why you were so driven in your career, why you were so successful at State Farm and at other companies you worked for. I think a lot of it, whether you know it or not, probably stems from some of the things that happened to you when you were little. So why don't we?
You sure it wasn't because he just knew you?
No.
That's a big joke. That's a joke.
If people watched our first couple episodes, they know that I was fired several times
No,
in my career.
But you brought it around with it.
Yeah,
with it,
so I ended up bringing it around later, but
Sure.
I think Tony brought it around pretty quick.
But
you know.
running with the metaphor, you were fired so many times it was a crucible, and you end up being refined.
Yeah, the way I look at it is like this: like everyone's afraid of failure, right? But I say, hey,
Give it a shot.
I say give it a shot
What the hell,
because
punch in the face don't hurt
my
that much.
theory is if you fail at something, you know it's just not your thing, or you got to work harder at it. You know what I mean? So my motto is fail like 10 times before noon every day.
Or fail upwards.
Yeah, because it does lift you to higher ground.
Absolutely.
He starts off with missing the toilet when he starts off in
Yeah,
the bathroom
you know,
right
I,
off the beginning.
make
That's how
sure-
his day starts.
Sure, I refuse to make the bed. I do all these things that you should be doing, you know, to make sure that I
makes sense.
learn from it. But no, kids today, I think, do struggle with failure because it's looked down on negatively. It's not. It's just a good thing because it gets you somewhere better in the end, right?
If you haven't failed, you haven't tried.
Correct.
And perhaps also, if you haven't failed, you haven't tried anything difficult enough.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
if you don't have a little admixture of failure in there, then you're a wild underachiever or Superman, and probably way more of the wild underachiever.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's
I'm thinking.
interesting. It's really interesting.
So maybe let's go back to you were telling me a little bit about you have two other brothers and you kind of had a pivotal moment. Well, you had a lot of tough things going on between your mom and you, and then some things happened after that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your growing up and what you're able to do and what you weren't able to do and some of the consequences of things.
Well, my mom and dad are two folks that should never have been married, perhaps to anyone, but absolutely not to each other.
Okay.
Oil and water, and both of them were probably trying to escape their environment a little bit. My mom and dad got married because she was pregnant. She was 17. My dad was, I think, 23. And
Which was not uncommon.
No.
not
I mean,
uncommon at all.
that isn't so bad or big a deal, but it's obviously a rough start. Poor, uneducated folks. And my mom struggled with her sexual identity, as I found out, later in life. And that didn't help. And she really was more attracted to the same sex versus the opposite sex. My dad was, the fancy word is a libertine. And if he was more successful, he'd have been a gigolo. And then later in life, he got to the first rung of gigolo. He would brag about what women were buying him, et cetera.
Yeah.
And
I
me
know.
being the spoiler, my dad would brag about it. And I go, that's not ethical. That's not right. How do you think that makes that woman feel? And I'm like 12. I'm not joking. I always talk like the weirdo that I am now. I mean, I really did.
Right, mature at an early age.
In
I guess.
first grade, we had to, in Holy Angels Catholic School,
Yeah.
we had to go around the room and tell kind of a junior version of this, right?
Right.
And what I said was perhaps eloquent enough that the nun sent me to the other 7 grades, 8th grade, 1
Yeah.
through 8, and knock on the door and tell the teacher that Sister Mary Elephant wanted me to give you the little speech that I gave.
Oh boy.
And that was in first grade. So
Right. Well, what was the speech?
it was on relativism.
Oh.
And not theory of relativity, but it was the fact that comparable values were tough to be judged by someone not in that subset. That's a way more eloquent old man version of what I said.
Right.
But something to that effect. There is a book of psychology, child psychology, written by a gentleman named Paget. And there are stages of emotional development. And I was evidencing a stage of development a lot further along than a 6-year-old should have.
Right.
That's kind of what
Right.
it was. And I was outing myself with my conceptualization of it.
Right.
And they were like, okay, go to the 2nd grade, go to 3rd grade, 4th grade.
You're smarter than the 8th
Later
graders.
that
Get up
same
there.
year, I was thrown out of class for absconding with a kiss from the girl in the next desk over.
Nothing wrong with that, though.
Yeah, well, they thought so.
Well,
I was quite the scallywag and vagabond. It was Catholic school now, too.
Yeah.
But I absolutely stole kiss. It was
When was this?
Forced upon her.
70s or 60s, or when was it?
well, I'm born in 54, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it had to be like 60.
The 60s, yeah.
Yeah,
So you had
6-0.
a lot of shit going on around the world.
I think we
and you were in
cried when
Catholic
the
school.
Sputnik went up.
Yeah.
And because they showed it on TV or something, and the Russians were ahead of us, and look out now.
Yeah.
So anyhow, they had a very rocky marriage. My mom was always leaving my dad. I'm not suggesting that my dad wasn't a bit of a scoundrel or
Deserved it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not throwing it all on her. And it probably was pretty equal that way. All I know is we were constantly living apart, and they both were very poor. So now when you had two households, it got to be pretty interesting. We never went hungry, but almost.
Right.
We ate some really interesting stuff.
Yeah. So fried jumbo hits home with you.
Fried jumbo is like gourmet.
It is, man.
I'm
People
talking
don't
about
get that.
chicken feet and chicken
Yeah,
heads and intestines and livers and
Whatever you could get, protein.
lungs. Well, there was a Hayes slaughterhouse
Yeah.
in Hayes.
Hayes. PA.
Hayes.
I won't test you again. It's not my audience.
I call it Sandcastle.
I don't think they're expecting
You know where
anything.
Hayes is? It's right behind
I know.
Sandcastle.
Right.
I know you're being polite.
Where you hit that great big deer.
Yeah, right. I hit a big giant deer with a buck there, or
So-
with my truck.
Euphemistically, we would go. Now, I'm this big, so I was a we would go. A little pun there for the. Anyway, and
very
we,
little.
We would buy very little. I understand. Hey, but am I getting paid for this?
No.
No. We'll send you a.
I give you that lunch back.
There's some
Right
ginger
now.
ale in the fridge.
We would buy what they were throwing out. We would get a 55-gallon drum for something like $1, and it would be full with feathers and heads and feet and hooves and whatever. And we would go through. I'm not really doing anything. I'm like 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
They would go through it and see what would be edible, and we'd clean
Right.
it and wash
So
it.
that's in
and
the
eat it.
60s, huh?
Yeah, so I got used to eating things like lamb head and whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, it's to this day my favorite dish.
And you know what's funny? Some of that now is like, upper crust delicacy,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So they're starting to, the new kind of restaurateur guys and chefs are they're discovering some of that stuff. And hey, holy shit, that's good.
Back
Like
to
cheeks
the
and-
organ meats.
Yeah, the organ meats.
So we meeting the family, we had a rough go, and finally my mother was deciding to leave for the last time. At that point, I was about 10. My next younger brother was 8. My youngest brother was 4.
So you're the oldest, huh?
I'm the oldest.
There you go,
and
kid.
all that accrues with birth order.
Yeah.
But I'm joking. There is something to birth order, but
Mm-hmm.
not. The big deal is that every time my mom would leave my dad, I would be a troublemaker, thinking that in my little brain that if I'm rough on mom, she won't be able to take it and she'll go back with dad.
Yeah.
No, she would beat me into submission. I actually became a model child shortly
Yeah.
after every time I acted out because I just couldn't take the beatings. And
Right.
it was a real pain in the butt. So she said the night before she left for the very last time, do you want to go? No, I want to stay with dad. My second brother, you want to go? No, I want to stay with my dad. Third child, 4. I don't even think she asked him. He said, I want to stay with dad. And she said, you're too young, and I'm taking him. And I didn't see her again for 12 years. We got one phone call almost to the day, and maybe it would have been to the day. I was too young to remember.
Wow.
But it was essentially a year to the day. The word was given to us that at my great aunt's house, a phone call would be made. And she would talk to only my brother and myself that was remaining with my dad. And so we were there at the appointed time. I'm the first on the phone. My mother calls, and she starts, into "I love you, honey," and starts crying or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm very ascetic, and I say, "Geez, Mom, if you love us so much, why did it take a year for you to call?" And she, all of a sudden, was no longer teary, and said, "Well, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Give me your brother."
Wow.
And she fulfilled her needs.
Her inner need.
All he could do is blubber. And they were on the phone quite a while.
Yeah.
How long, I don't know.
Her
but,
inner need to feel that love.
Oh, Tony, your grandmother, then she raised all those kids by herself. Then
Yeah.
And then had you guys move in.
Well, they were all, my dad was the youngest.
Yeah.
And he was a love child. But when they were separated, my grandmother got pregnant.
Oh.
And that's probably why this rich guy got to pay no alimony.
Wow.
That just isn't right, dude.
No, that's bad shit.
And
I guess the government didn't make him.
But where was the sense of fair play? I mean,
Well, back in those days, it was a different ball game.
Sure was.
We cry about some of that stuff now that they're too heavy-handed, but in a lot of ways, it helps. It helps a lot of people.
Absolutely. My grandmother was born here. My grandfather, who was a gravedigger, like Shakespearean, back when they dug graves. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure they had steam shovels, but there was no steam shovel about it.
Not too many in Pittsburgh, probably. They were at the mill or at the coal mine.
Yep.
Wow.
And so he was old school as they got. He lived 105, by the way.
Wow.
105. Pietro Passand, which I think is translated as Pete the Strong.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Well,
he didn't eat graves all your life, you get strong.
I guess after a certain age, if you didn't eat a lot of processed food or smoked, he might not have smoked. He probably lived forever.
He drank a little bit every day.
Yep.
With a big beer with an egg, raw egg in it kind of thing.
No shit.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Smoked a little cigar, the Perotis.
Mm-hmm.
And he still lived 105.
Well, you know what that egg does? It gives you a little bit more bottom. So maybe he was doing some exercise on the side to keep him going to 100.
Funny you should say that because I was told by my grandmother that my great grandmother left my grandfather at the age of about 78 because he was indulging in a lady 2 blocks over.
There you go, baby. That beer and that egg. There's shit. We might have started something, Dobbs.
And my aunt,
Give me some eggs.
my aunt
We
told
can market
me
that.
Someone get me some eggs. Luke,
Iron City and eggs too. Probably.
I need Iron City and eggs.
well, I had a grandfather work for Iron City too, and that's another little story there. You got free beer if you worked there at lunch hour.
Oh shit!
So they're all schnookered, and you got a free case of beer. And then you could buy it at a discount. I don't know what the discount was. Yeah, it was an amazing time. So my grandfather was very touchy-feely until the age of 100. Because my aunt said, he used to grab her all the time. Come sit on my lap. Hey, you're so wow. Whatever.
The grave digger.
You're so wow.
The grave digger.
All right, so
Luckily, I got none of that.
I got a circle list. Of
Good for you.
Here. Okay, so you also were telling me during lunch that you didn't play a lot of Little League and sports and stuff because your dad, basically at that time, because your mom was gone, just didn't have the means to get you places, didn't want to put
Or
money.
the desire. No, I didn't want to do it, and I wanted to join the Boy Scouts, and we can't afford it, son. You have to realize. And I learned at an early age, like, the little kids ask for toys, and you walk through the store. Every time I got, and it was probably true, and I'm not trying to be heartless, but I got enough sob stories about why we can't afford this toy because it go on for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no works, not no, and you realize we're barely eating now.
Yeah.
We may die next week.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I asked for the toy.
Right. Yeah. Been there.
Yeah. So
you weren't able to do that, so you started really digging into your study. Like you started to covet books and education.
I was an introvert anyhow, and I think I still am naturally, but I've learned that being an introvert just is not very successful. So I delved into the books, and then at the age of 12, because I got tired of getting beat up all the time because we'd move around. I'm a short, fat kid with glasses who's the smart, not to brag, smartest kid in class. Big fish, very little pond.
Right.
And till I got into something called the Pittsburgh Scholars Program, I was always the standout kid in every class I was in.
Right.
And short and fat and new.
Yeah.
Hello, there's a large target painted on my behind.
Oh, gosh.
And even giving up didn't work.
This is the start of SOAR.
But
if you
dude,
think about it. Remember SOAR?
Yeah.
Where you
My brother
had to
was
have
in that.
130 IQ and you had to have.
My brother was in that.
Like
okay.
That ended up going to public schools all over the place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was basically, when we were kids, it was called SOAR.
Yeah.
I don't know what SORA is.
Yeah. Remember Bart being in that? He was in the SOAR program.
Yeah, but you had to have a 130 IQ and you had to have like a
Wow, yeah, same
33.6 grade point average.
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. It was what I was in the Pittsburgh Scholars Program, and it was the very first year. And Dad being Dad, my father quit ninth grade as he was flunking out.
Yeah.
So we were apples and oranges. And he said, "You really want to do that? Sounds like a lot of work." I said, sounds like a challenge.
Did you start? Yeah, challenge. Oh, there you go.
His dad didn't appreciate
His dad
education.
challenging you.
No. His dad didn't appreciate education. He looked down on him for trying to get better.
My mom was a wild woman. Mm-hmm. My dad was a libertine. You hear what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
So not like
Yeah.
pointing fingers. And he thought for sure I wasn't his kid because I was so different from him.
Oh, wow.
Even though he liked taking me to bars when I'm
That
like
had to feel
5 years old
funky
and have
for
me
you.
spell words.
Yeah. But that had to be funky for you at times when you felt that, right?
Yeah, but because I didn't realize that. There's the egg.
And the Iron City.
Yeah, you might have to watch
Oh
that.
wow,
Randall.
Luke, you're a genius. I mean, that's very enlightened.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will be.
Iron City iced tea. I didn't.
You know what that means later on tonight. Boom.
Ba-da-dum. Tammy,
Our wives better be running for the hills.
Tammy better get her sneakers on.
Wow.
Now, you being in smart and then obviously continuing that and putting your arms around that part of your, I guess, who you were at the time, right? Was that a comforting thing for you? Because you knew you had something that nobody else
And
did.
to this day, I'm still a geek and a wonk, and
Nothing wrong with that, baby.
I have to pull myself away from educational TV. I'm constantly reading. I'm not even bragging. It's a little weird. I mean,
Even at State Farm, he was like the number one agent in life insurance sales for many, many years.
Right.
And he was always the very first one in the meetings. He was the very first one in the front row, asking all the questions, taking all the notes. I mean,
Sucking up that info, baby.
Yeah,
no, that's his power. That was your power, I guess.
Yeah.
Your strength.
but I wasn't trying to hurt anybody with it.
No, of course you weren't.
I think what you're doing there is you're gaining some control of your life through education.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? Because there was so much chaos and everything.
Chaos is the word.
And that was the one thing
you could stabilize.
Yeah.
Because words aren't moving. They're not punching you. They're not
Right.
leaving. They're coming to you, and it's providing you with great value immediately, but then potentially greater value later.
Yeah, which you probably didn't even recognize how important it was when you were a kid doing
I
that
didn't.
shit.
I
You didn't know it was
I
going to
didn't
pay
realize
off.
that. No, it just felt really good.
Yeah.
and fun and a little bit empowering, but
Yeah.
not in a negative way. But it was fun flexing the educational muscles.
Yeah.
I'm a Harvard grad, and I don't mean to throw that in as a ham-handed segue, but at Harvard, I maybe was the best read one in my class, not the smartest.
Right.
I was middle at least, but no, because I read just constantly.
Yeah.
And most people are focused on a field or a subject, and I would be omnibus on what I read. So I knew this,
Right.
I knew that, I knew the other thing. Maybe more interesting, and it was not really that strategic, if you will. It isn't like I could do a lot with it.
Dude, you are like a poster child for education helping poverty. Improving poverty. You're like the poster child for that, dude. It's so freaking important. It's so important. We're missing that.
Then I ask you why I had to take public transportation here today. No, I'm joking.
You didn't have my number. I would have came and got you.
Yeah. So we were trying to think, where do we want to go with this podcast when we were having lunch today? And I said, Tony, it has to tie back to your dad didn't covet education. Your mom sort of walked out on you kids, beat you, I think devalued you physically and mentally. And your father almost had a jealousy of your
I feel so trite
education.
and cheap to say it, but I do felt that he was, very.
Yeah.
And maybe it's, if you don't have a really well-developed psyche, maybe it's in the scapegoat. Here's your kid getting solid A's, dominating his classes and talking about, well, this and that and blah, 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 and you quit ninth grade as you were failing.
Yeah.
But he took it to
And I didn't know that
to
till
such
older.
an extreme that he used to say that you weren't his kid or think that you weren't his kid.
And finally articulated it when I was in my mid to late 20s. And
That's
I go,
crazy
I had
shit,
an aha
man.
moment like, that's why he doesn't like me. Because every word out of my mouth was like acid to him.
Wow,
I mean, I couldn't get it.
Yeah, if you said something was orange, he'd say it was yellow.
How the hell do you get from Harvard, from a house in such poverty, even though you were getting straight A's? Did Harvard did the system notice you as like this kid that had his shit together so well that this kid has an opportunity, or did were you in some program that shined and that's where they found you? How does that happen?
I think just God. I just happenstance not being happenstance. Some machinations of the Lord opening up the door of opportunity here and there.
Went to Harvard. I think you're wearing a Rolex. I think there's a Porsche in the driveway.
It's hot though. No, actually, it's not.
That's all right. 5-finger discount.
It's a rental
baby.
though. It is a rental.
I mean, it's a
beautiful
journey. Success story.
It is, man, and a nod to education and getting that education in our system to help our people that are less fortunate than most. Right? It's for real, man.
Yeah. If you walk away with anything from this episode, is you got to covet education. I don't care who you are.
No, you do. You do.
I don't care where you come from.
Yep.
What your means are. Find a way to stay in school. Find a way to get to college, community college, any college, and just keep grinding until you end up somewher. Because companies will hire you. They want you.
Yeah.
They want everybody.
Oh, no doubt.
They're looking for people that, that want to learn and are, I think more than anything, will embrace change. And education helps you embrace change.
Talk about a constant.
You learn.
Yeah.
Change.
Yeah, change. I mean, it's the only thing that's a constant that we're going to be looking forward to, or some people don't look forward to it, and I think they struggle. But if you accept it and you look forward to change.
And for those that struggle,
you'll
still
do well.
go for education, but the education might be plumbing, HVAC, etc.
Yeah.
Don't stop at high school. You got to differentiate yourself.
Even if you get out of high school, you can go and still be a plumber, be an electrician. These great jobs, man. And just keep working at it. There are systems out there, and we got a lot of tax dollars out there to help people that are less fortunate get to school. We just got to you got to educate them on how to get that education. That's where we're freaking missing that gap. That's why I asked you, how the hell did you get there?
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. You got to get kids involved in education during those crucial years. I think that, as you hit puberty and you're seeing your friends doing some things they shouldn't be doing sometimes, maybe they're getting involved with the wrong crowd or whatever, and they got this this road.
Yeah, baby.
And I saw it a million times in my life. And there's one road that looks so cool, but it ends up not being the one you need to go on.
I'm a big fan of everything in moderation, Chris.
Yeah,
true. Yeah. But also that's why I mentioned God. Because I do think that not so much literal, but at least figuratively, have guardian angels, and they sometimes help us enlighten, make that. Okay, without even asking you exactly, again rhetorically, haven't you all said, "Wow, I made the right decision. How'd I do that?" Or I could have done this, but I didn't. I somehow knew better than to do that. And that one thing could have ruined your life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Plenty of times, man. And you just have that governor switch. And a lot of times for me, and I didn't go to church every damn day, right? But I did grow up Catholic as a kid. You had that, not fear of God, but it was that governor switch or that, I don't know what the hell it was, right? It said, it's probably not the right thing to do. Uh-oh. I knew it. Guy thinks this big and thinks this about everything.
Well, maybe.
It's funny. I have I just keep moving. Like I have that energy to keep moving. So I have written things down because if I don't, I'll never.
Whoops. I got to get one for you too, Chris.
What is it?
He said it on the gray side, I think.
What does that mean? I can't read that.
Ancora
imparo veritas. Isn't that Latin?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Ancora, Ancora.
Yeah, you got to Ancora imparo veritas.
Yeah,
I've heard it. What's it
I'm still learning truth. The last words of Michelangelo supposedly was, "I'm still learning."
Wow. Harvard's
motto is veritas, or truth.
Right.
And I thought I should have a motto.
There you go.
Just, with work, we're supposed to put in, your value system. And so I thought, I don't know if it'd be my final words, like, please God, take me. But what would I want to be remembered? Maybe that I'm still learning truth. Not even just still learning. It is difficult to ferret out the truth today, harder than any time in my life. And I have so many filters. I have so many things to draw upon, and yet we're living in a world where everybody is exaggerating their position, it seems. And so it's not 100% true and 100% true. It's like 20% true and 20% true. And where is the real truth?
Yeah, it is weird.
And I'm still learning because the more I know I don't know. And I hate that in a way. And I'm not being humble. The more you know you don't know. What don't I know? Oh, my God. How long do you have?
Well, I'll tell you what, Tone. From a guy who grew up in a household, an abusive household, I may say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was abusive.
With a single parent and your grandma, 2 brothers, and probably a damn row house in Bloomfield, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To being the governor of the Harvard Business School Club in Pittsburgh is a pretty great journey, my friend.
Well, don't say that too quickly because those are each $10. And since you took constructive receipt of them, you owe me.
Oh, God. There's the Harvard one right there. Trying to give me one, you know?
All right.